All right, welcome to the House Rich podcast. We talk about average people that have done above average things in the world of real estate. So today's sponsor is House Rich, the brand right here. So it's the official brand of home ownership. So click the link in my bio, or it'll be in the description to this show, and purchase some merch. So today's guest, we got Kadeem Howell. He's a physical therapist, but we're going to talk to him about the FHA 203K program, as well as his side business or side hustle as well. So you gotta introduce yourself to the good folks.
Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Kadeem Howell, aka Dr. Deem on Instagram. And so yeah, Dave connected me on Instagram. He's seen me do a couple side hustles, vending machines, trading stocks, crypto, and most recently, I just purchased a home using FHA, the 203K program. So I'm really excited about today's episode. We're going to dive in a little deep on how it works from start to, I'm almost at the end, so start to almost finish.
All right.
And all the hurdles with that.
Okay, awesome. So I call like the FHA 203K program kind of like the best loan program no one's even heard of. I was a loan officer, I think, for 2 years before I even heard of the program. So like, how did you even hear about the program to begin with?
Good question. So I'm sure you guys probably heard of MG, the mortgage guy, Matt Garland. Yeah, he was my mortgage lender, and he talked about it briefly. I've heard him at a seminar about 2 years ago, and I was like, oh, because everyone knows 203K, house hack, 3.5% down.
Yeah.
And then you add the construction on top of that. I was like, oh, okay, that could be kind of powerful.
Yeah.
So, I reached out to Matt, and he's like, oh, basically sign up, check your credit score and everything as a client, to use him as a lender. And he was just dropping, little bombs here and there about how the 203K program is going to work from the lender side.
Okay.
And, and there's a lot that goes into it. He's really knowledgeable. And, if anyone who's ever decided to go this route, you need to find a lender that knows how to do this program.
Yes.
Like, don't even second guess it.
Yeah, that's great, because like I said, I consider myself very knowledgeable in the field of lending, but I really don't know anything about the FHA 203K program. And I've been in the business for 6 years. Like I said, I've seen a couple of Matt's videos for the FHA 203K program, and actually download or actually purchase his renovation guide. I've not looked at it yet. So yeah, definitely a resource of information there. So do you talk a little bit about actually going through the home buying process just in general? Like, is this your first home?
So this is my first primary residence.
Okay.
I did purchase a duplex once that I ended up flipping. I wanted to buy and hold, but the money was there, so I sold it in 2019, like pre-pandemic. And then we purchased this home. We went in contract 2020, purchased it in 2021. And where I live in Westchester County, New York, it's real expensive here. I mean, taxes are high, real estate prices are high. There are multifamilies, like where I live, because a lot of people are like, why don't you just buy a multifamily? The problem is these multifamilies don't cash flow.
Okay.
And what I mean by cash flow, like even if, say if I bought a 3-family here using the FHA program, even if I moved out, it wouldn't cover the mortgage.
Okay.
Because the taxes, tax in some of these 2-3 families where I live could be up from 20 to 30K in taxes. Like no shot of cash flow.
What price range are we talking about?
Right now, like say like a 3-family in my neighborhood, you're looking at 750.
Okay.
800, and you're probably renting about 2K an apartment. Now you tap on 20K in property taxes. You're going to be living, not mortgage free, but just like, a lower cost of living. But in some of these homes, and these are old housing stocks, they need a lot of renovation. I'm just like, okay, so unless you find that one diamond in the rough, but there's a lot of, New York City buyers buying the real deals, and honestly, on paper, they don't really pan out that well as like a deal, because they end up just getting reassessed. Like a lot of these counties, like you buy something, you fix it up, but the tax man is going to hit you that reassessment. Now you got 30K in taxes. You went from like 15 to 20. You're like, oh, now I'm not cash flowing anymore. So we wanted to live in this area, and I was like, okay, well, one play we knew we could do is if we buy a real fixer up. I'm not talking about like a real home run deal.
Okay.
As our primary residence, refi, if the spread is there, kind of like you're doing a traditional flip, we could either sell for a profit, or refi and roll into like another investment property in like say down south or the Midwest where it makes sense.
Yeah, that's what I always tell folks. I mean, one good thing about the FHA 2 or 3K program is you can literally buy, the worst house in the best neighborhood, and then put those renovations in and then build that equity. Which I don't know if you bought the worst house, but it gives you the opportunity to at least do that. But can you take us from from applying for the loan to actually like finding a home, kind of how that process went? And did you go into the process with the idea of using the 203K, or did that kind of come along as you were looking for homes?
It was always in the back of our mind. So when we got pre-approved with Matt, it's not like you need a separate pre-approval. It's a similar pre-approval for an FHA loan. I don't know at the top of my head the minimum credit score is. Like it's 580, the minimum credit score they're looking for.
So 580, 3.5% down, and then technically 500 at 10% down. But yeah.
So yeah, it's basically the same criteria for the most part as if you're just going to get a regular FHA loan. But when you add the rehab component to it, like I was saying, the housing stock where we are is very, it's very old. So a lot of people didn't do upgraded windows, upgraded electrical, upgraded plumbing. So like you'll pay like $500,000, $600K for a house that some people are okay with living with, but then it's like, you're gonna run into some major capex expenses. So I was like, okay, so if we're gonna do this route, I'd rather use a
for the folks that don't know, what's that capex expense?
So capital expenditures, those are like the big improvements of a home. You think heating, your boiler system, your furnace, your plumbing, your electrical system, the electrical box, your electric panel that we had to change because ours is very flammable. So a lot of people in this area, they don't want to fix up their old homes. Homes catch on fire, lose their homes. Like it happens all the time, guaranteed. And I live in New York, so in the wintertime, a lot of people run space heaters, Christmas lights, boom, electrical fuse, house burns down. It happens like clockwork in this area.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's why we went into thinking, okay, let's do the renovation loan if we can find a deal. We weren't using this loan to buy something that's retail. Like we wanted to find the true, off market or distressed property. But what we noticed that a lot of them wanted cash only.
Yeah.
Now, the thing with 203K is you could use the money to rehab the house can be wrapped into the mortgage.
Okay.
So it's like, yeah, say if the house has a busted roof, some squatters came and took all the pipes out, you'll have a 203, you'll get an inspection to see the condition of the house, and you're gonna get an appraisal with a 203K, and they'll even tell you if this house is even lendable. Because if you try to take a traditional conventional mortgage or FHA mortgage, they're gonna be like, oh, the house has to be livable, in a livable standard. But with the 203K loan, it doesn't have to be on onset. But when you get a contractor bid of the items that you need to hit, they need to make sure that the house is going to be livable. And I think they want to make sure it's safe, livable, and I think there's one more criteria they look for. With the 203K, like if you're going to do the construction and do the rehab, to make sure that it's a lendable property. So I was like, so we knew that if we found something, we need one, the price has to be, low enough that if we don't put in these renovations, if we were to refinance or, sell for a profit, that there will be a margin there. And FHA wants to know that too, because they're not just going to lend on anyone who wants to just, build an addition on their house unnecessarily. You know what I'm saying? Like they want to make sure that it will appraise properly compared to comps. So all that in mind, we kind of just went shopping. We shot a lot of offers, and we got beat out by a lot of people because of the pandemic. A lot of people wanted to leave New York City and like go to the outer boroughs of New York City. So like where I live, there's a few like the tri-state area, Connecticut, New Jersey, and really wanted to be competitive. So we went against the grain and kind of went the off-market route.
So can you talk about how the actual process works? So you get pre-qualified, then you find a home, and then so once you find a home, like do you get an inspection before or after the offer? When does that because I know there's like a process part where that, like you said, the inspector or like an FHA 2 or 3 evaluator comes through. Like what is that actual process look like?
So So how the process worked, we found the house. So we found
Okay.
an off-market house in our area, and essentially we right away we also had a contractor with us
Okay.
because a contract is one of the key components of this whole deal from the beginning to end.
Yeah.
Um, so they need a scope of work of what you want done, and it could be any contractor who's licensed or insured. It's better if you have one that has an understanding of the 203K loan because they know the criteria they want. But
Okay.
basically, they're going to take that scope. So your purchase price and their scope needs to be within their lending criteria. I believe FHA will lend 110%
Okay.
above the appraised value in terms of like adding the rehab cost of the new appraised value. Um, so then once you do an accepted offer, inspection isn't required. More so, inspection is more to protect yourself. Just like
Okay.
any standard house buying process.
Uh-huh.
But basically now they're going to get an appraisal. Now the appraisal is one of the first initial steps after accepted offer
Okay.
because your loan officer or your bank who you're going with, they want to make sure that the purchase price and the estimated rehab costs are going to fit with that after repair value.
Okay.
You can choose an as is value, but what they care about is that after
Yeah.
repair value, the estimated appraisal, because they want to make sure that they're lending to a house that's lendable. Because you don't want to be underwater where you bought a house where it's 500K, you did 200K work, but it's only worth 400. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you're underwater from day one. So they're going to make sure that's within their lending criteria. And each lender I know has a different variance of what they accept.
Okay.
But I believe for us it was like 110% above the new appraised value is
Okay.
what they're going to lend. They're going to lend to.
Okay.
So it's either if you want to do more work, it's either you bring more money to the table. We chose the 3.5% down like most FHA buyers. So
Mhm.
we knew where our maximum loan limit was going to be in the house. We didn't hit the maximum, but we
Okay.
wanted to do enough just to get in and make the house complete. You could do something like once you do the basics, you could add in a pool if you want to. You could
All right.
add all this other crazy stuff. I mean, that's on you. Whether or not you think it's going to truly add value, but we stuck to the true value points in the house. And then once you have all that lined up from your contractor, the scope of work for your contractor, how much it's going to cost, whatever, how much you're going to put down for financing, then they're going to put you to underwriting multiple times. I mean,
Okay.
nonstop. I just
All
felt
right.
like didn't they run the numbers already? I think they ran the numbers on the project like 5 or 7 times. And I was just
Uh-huh.
like, oh boy. But they just want to make sure because it's risky for
Yeah.
them.
So how'd you actually go about finding your contractor?
So good question. I just I spoke to actually this was from a family friend, our first contractor.
All right.
So our first contract was through a family friend who was familiar with the 203K loan process. So it was kind of easy because like he knew how it works. He knew how construction draws were going to go. And construction draws are basically how the contractor gets paid.
Okay.
So once a contractor makes a scope of work, now with 203K, there's two loans. There's a 203K streamline and there's the regular 203K.
Okay.
So now with the 203K streamline, it's up to 35K of renovations, does not need what's called the HUD consultant.
Okay.
So the HUD consultant, in my opinion, is the second or maybe tied with the contract is the most important person of this process.
All right.
So if you go above that 35K threshold, the HUD consultant, he's basically working on behalf of the bank.
Okay.
So he looks at the contractor's bid, even before closing, he wants to make sure it makes sense. He's like, okay, does like say if he says the kitchen, right? If the contractor says 50K for a kitchen, but he sees that like he's really doing 10K worth of work, he's like, okay, that doesn't add up. So
Okay.
it's actually kind of nice because he's working on your side, but he's really working on the bank side. So he's kind
Yeah.
of a middleman protecting both parties. So he'll look at the scope and make sure that it makes sense. And what he'll do is he'll break it down into pieces of how the contractor is going to get paid.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's what I was trying to say when I kept saying the inspector. But yeah, so that's the word I was looking for there. And and so are you work with the HUD consultant now? Like are your renovations they're over 35K, I would assume in that area?
Right. So
Okay.
we went with about just over 100K, like 110K of renovations. And now, so yeah, that put us in the category of our HUD consultant. So he's my main point of contact because I don't necessarily contact the bank directly. at
Okay.
all. He's the middleman. So what his job is, after he made that scope of work and how he outlined how the contract going to get paid, like he'll put demo, so like the first draw, and the draw is just how the contractor gets paid. He put no demolition, plumbing, half electrical. So once the contractor does those things, I make a phone call to him like, hey, it's time for you to take an inspection to see the contractor's work. He'll come in with his checkbook, mark up all the things that are completed,
Gotcha.
and then he'll send that to the bank, and the bank will review what he did, his inspection with the pictures. And then once they see those line items, they'll pay out the contractor those corresponding items.
Okay.
So in this case, the contractor gets paid after work is done. And, I know it could be a little difficult because some contractors, they expect some money like to mobilize or just to get things going or materials. So it is a little tough. Sometimes like we came out of pocket just for like a little bit of materials, but then the contractor compensated back once he got paid from the bank.
Okay. Okay, I guess that makes sense. You hear like those horror stories where contractors run off with the money, so the bank's not going to make sure that doesn't happen to you in the first place there. And so I think you
Right. They need to see the work done.
Yeah. So I think you mentioned to me, you brought up to me you're going through the FHA 203K program like a few months back. Like when did you actually close and where are you at in the process right now?
Good question. So we went under contract almost exactly a year ago,
Oh wow, okay.
December 2020, and it took 4 months to close. We closed in April 2021. It was a few title issues that we had to resolve because we bought an off-market property in our neighborhood. It was just for sale by owner.
Okay.
And and how we stood out is because we didn't know the sellers per se, but they knew we were in the neighborhood. They liked us.
Okay.
As soon as they put that, I saw them stake the for sale sign outside their door. So it wasn't on Zillow. And I was like, I called her nonstop. I was like, yo, we want to buy this house. We want to buy this house. I sent them a letter and I told them our plans for the house. So, I kind of swooped in at a, perfect place, right time. But there was a few houses that we got accepted offers on that were houses that needed work.
Okay.
Even though the offer said cash, cash only, we were like, oh, FHA 203K in most cases almost just as good as cash in the sense that how lendable it is. Obviously, it's not as fast. It took me 4 months to close, but I'd say, if there weren't any title issues, we easily could have closed in like 45 days.
Okay.
I mean, Matt's really good. I don't know if every lender is as good as Matt, but some people think, oh, there's a lot of red tape. There really isn't. As long as you have your contractor ready, it's not that much red tape. It's basically just like a regular FHA loan, just so that contract component. But to answer your question, that's how we found that house, and it took us 4 months to close. And now we're about 2 draws in. So our contractor, like I said, first contractor we actually had to fire him, and we have since hired a new contractor. And right now we're at the tail end of the project. Windows are in, walls are up. We're just finalizing our kitchen. And now some of you are probably thinking to yourself, oh, but Kadeem, you close in April. They know typically a 203K loan takes 6 months to complete, which is right. I'm above that 6 month mark. But now, so I was like, wait, what happened? So you're allowed to ask for extensions.
Okay.
Especially now, COVID's the perfect excuse. Because of COVID. I mean, literally because of COVID, some things are backed up, like ordering cabinets, ordering certain fixtures. Some materials were really like out of stock at Home Depot and Lowe's. So some things had to be, as long as I showed them proof, waiting for permits, because those things take time and they understand that.
Okay.
They're not going to hold you to, oh my God, it has to be done in 6 months. Like, no, if you have a legit reason why, like for us, we changed contractors midway, and that process, it goes to the HUD consultant. Like ask for extension, that goes to the HUD consultant. I just give him a call. Hey, this is the situation. XYZ is okay. So he gives me a change order slip. It's a HUD change order, and that goes to him, and then that goes directly to the bank, and they'll approve it or deny it.
Okay. And are you currently living in the property, or are you living somewhere else right now?
No, currently the house that we bought is probably like around the corner. I live with my in-laws, so I literally could look out my window and my contractor's there right now. And it's like 7:30 New York time, and he's still working at the house this late. But yeah, so fortunate that was close enough to us, find something off market and able to like monitor it. But yeah, that's where we are right now in the process. And our construction could easily go in to a full 12 months.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Which I don't expect it to. I expect it to be done the next month and a half. But because everyone knows the FHA requirement, oh, Kadeem, don't you have to live in the house for at least a year? Well, yes, I had every intention to live in the house within a year. And that's the one thing about the 2 or 3K loan that, it's not really an escape workaround the 1 year requirement. But, after a year, I'll be eligible to refinance that house,
So,
even though I never lived in it.
so the clock starts when you close on the loan.
Exactly.
Oh, okay, okay.
Not when the construction is when you close on the loan. I mean, I have every intention of living in the house, but that same 1 year requirement, I can refinance that 203K loan, or because it's an FHA loan, I can refinance that loan if the equity is there. Which in this case, we do expect a decent equity bump.
Okay.
And it wasn't my intention to work around the live in for 1 year.
Yeah.
But God forbid. I mean, there's other excuses why you can be excluded from living in a house within that first year of the 2 or 3K. I mean, with the FHA loan and the 2 or 3K, in essence, if your construction does take that long, is one of those routes.
Okay. And so I know there's an option with the 2 or 3K loan to like roll the mortgage payments into the loan. Like, did you take that option or?
So I did not,
Okay.
and I regret. That is my number one regret. With this construction. So I mean, I paid the mortgage on time since day one, but it would have been nice because probably spent out about 20K in mortgage payments when I could have had that cash, because some people could use that cash to front their contractor instead, which is what it's designed for. Because some contractors just need somebody to get some materials going, to get a dumpster going. So like instead of you throwing it in, you can escrow the first 6 months of your mortgage payments into the loan, which gives you a nice cushion, and you pay 6 months later and then you're at a decent spot. You're not paying because and another reason why, because we're paying rent here, so it's they understand that it's tough for a borrower to pay rent and a mortgage at the same time, so it kind of gives you a little reprieve. So if I ever do this loan again, which I intend on doing, I'm definitely taking that 6 month option.
All right. And so how does that actually work? The money goes to you or goes to the lender? What is that? How does FHA make sure that you're not just taking that money and just buying a car? Do they give it to you or do they give it to somebody else?
You mean the construction draws? The money
like when you like roll those I think you roll like 6 months of payments into the loan itself.
That's at closing. That's at closing.
But you get a check for 6 months at closing, like directly to you?
No, so they add it to the loan amount.
Okay.
So you're not exchanging any money. It's in escrow on day one at closing.
Okay. They add it to the loan amount. The lender just draws it as
exactly.
Okay. Roger that. Okay.
They're not collecting it from your pocket for 6 months. So again, it would have been a nice cushion. Was able to survive without doing that, but if I ever did it again, I highly recommend it. Just do that. It's gonna make your life a lot easier.
Okay. So I think we talked about, and so kind of lastly, are there any do you have any regrets on doing the 203K loan, or was it just any regrets on the program?
None at all. It is eye-opening. There's not a lot of education because, like you said, like as a lender, you knew a little bit about it, but there's some experienced lenders that have not even touched a 203K loan.
Yeah, 6 years, never done
it. And there's a lot of moving parts, but if you have the proper education, like I said, Matt Garland has an education programming outlines from start to finish, and you may be able to educate your loan officer about it, and they can easily find out more. It's definitely worth it. I mean, the ultimate power I think with it, if you could tie it into a cash flowing 4-family, or a multifamily, because you can do that. You use it for multifamily, you can use it for mixed use properties. That's where you could truly leverage the true power of this loan. And what I like about it for me, because like you said, I'm a healthcare provider, and you can use FHA multiple times, just can't have two at the same time. What I want to do for my next one is I want to buy a mixed use property to potentially open up like a my practice. So say if it's like a mixed unit with one commercial unit and 3 apartments above, you can use the renovation loans for the commercial space as well.
Okay.
So you could really leverage this loan. So, but for my first time doing it, I have no regrets other than rolling in the first 6 months of mortgage payments into the loan, just kind of give you that buffer, just in case, some expenses that come up that are going to incur with your contractor, just to float him, because you are going to get it back. You can make sure it's in writing so he just doesn't run off with your money. But yeah, I think it's house renovation or house. It's not really house flipping because FHA is not for investors, but it's house renovation with training wheels.
All right.
The HUD consultant, he's like your guy. Like you could usually call them. Sometimes they have contractor recommendations too.
Okay.
And a HUD consultant, usually your lender is going to have a HUD consultant that they can refer you to, because that's the person they communicate with the most. They don't communicate with contractors per se, but a HUD consultant who's licensed by HUD to do this work, they're more likely to be in contact with a lender, and that's your guide through this whole process. And like I said, if you want to fire a contractor, tell your HUD consultant, and you'll just plug in a new contractor.
All right. Okay, cool. Appreciate you running that program. Like I said, I've read a little bit about it, and ironically, I learned something from Matt as well. Looking on YouTube, like I said, I bought this course. I haven't viewed it yet, but wealth of information. So appreciate that. Now I want to talk a little bit more about your kind of like your side hustle, the vending business. So how did you get into that, the vending business?
Good question. So like a lot of people now, the pandemic, and I was a physical therapist, and I got laid off early in the pandemic because New York City shut down. Our clinics weren't open, and I was just sitting at home like, all right, well, now what? And I'd seen a few courses on vending that were floating around the internet, and people were selling them, machines for like pennies on the dollar. Because like I've seen vending machines for sale in the past. I always thought about it'd be a cool like passive income stream.
Yeah.
And I saw some people selling, vending machines established in locations for like $1,000 or $2,000 for like 2 machines. And I was like, oh wow, that sounds like a steal. I've seen vending machines go for like $2,000 for just the machine.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of like be greedy when others are fearful. So like the world is shutting down. It was the pandemic. So I was like, okay, so let me buy some of these routes. And they were slow, because, things weren't really going to open. People thought the world was going to end. Things were going to open up.
Yeah.
And the course I took wasn't, the best of how to do things, but just to get started. And I just stuck with it, because I had all this free time, the pandemic, I was furloughed, and I was like, all right, let me just pick up on this. But then as New York started to open up again, I went back to work, and I was like, okay, I can still maintain this thing on the side. Like, once a week, fill up some machines, collect some money, boom, just on repeat. And now, I kind of grew it to like a little small business.
Okay.
And it's a decent passive income stream for me.
How many machines do you have?
So right now I have 13 vending machines.
Oh, wow.
Right now though, some of them need to be repaired. So I have 8 that are like my full-time service machines. And the reason why there's some offline, just because some of the locations I bought came with extra machines. Some of them I fixed, some of them I sold. Okay. And I don't pay any commissions at any of my locations. Okay. So for me, it's free storage. So I don't want to have to pay a storage unit. So, I say I have 13 machines, but it's really just 8 machines that are, full-time working for me at various locations in the tri-state area. I have a few locations and growing.
Okay.
And yeah, it's been a pretty cool, passive income stream for me. The goal, my initial goal is to have my vending machines cover my mortgage.
Okay. You're almost there.
I'm almost there working on it. And because I said, the multifamilies, unless you put a lot of money down in New York City, when I say New York City, I'm outside of New York City. So it's a little different than in like Brooklyn, Bronx. You can find cash flowing multis because the taxes are a lot lower. But I live in a county just outside of New York, and the taxes are astronomical. So you need to put down like 30-40% for your multifamily to actually cash flow, just to offset that huge tax bill, property tax bill that there's no real workaround. So I was like, okay, let me get vending machines to cover my mortgage. And like I said, with other endeavors, refining out of the house to buy a multi, or buy like either a single family rental down south, or I'm looking at a few areas like upstate New York, Connecticut, to kind of make up for the fact that I couldn't use that loan to live in that area to buy a multifamily that really made sense.
Okay.
So that's one thing. And then, hopefully, Turo's popping off, but New York is really strict on rental cars. So
Okay.
Turo is
Yeah,
dead
I
in
heard
New York.
I heard it wasn't allowed in like the city limits or something like. Is that accurate?
In the whole state, actually.
Okay.
It's allowed. You just have to be a commercial established business in New York, because New
Okay.
York has really strict rental car like insurance laws.
Okay.
So, it's not like Turo where they handle everything for you. You're kind of on your own. So you need to have a lot of licenses and commercial insurance. And, Turo wants no liability if someone gets killed or, so I'm still learning that it is possible. It's just a lot harder than some other states where you just sign up on the app and go. But there is hire cars. So that's the next thing
Okay.
that I'm looking at. So yeah, I got my plate full.
All right. And how much time do you actually spend on the vending business?
That's a good question. So between buying product, driving to locations, and filling up, I say on average anywhere from 5 to 8 hours a week.
Okay.
Sometimes less, sometimes more. Like if I'm hitting up 2 locations that week, it may be closer to that 8 hours, 5 to 8 hour window. If there's just one location, sometimes all my locations are within 30 minutes driving.
Okay.
So, I usually buy things in bulk from like BJ's, Costco, Sam's Club. So like I'll buy stuff for all my locations, store them here where I live. And then like when it's time to go to that one location, okay, let me load up. I need this much Gatorade, this much water, this much snacks. And I have credit card readers on my machines. So I know, how much profit I was making that week, because I get a daily email at 5 a.m. says, okay, this is how well the machines did the previous day. And with the software, you can also check like which items are low. Like, oh, I'm low on Frito-Lays. I'm low on Starburst. I'm low on Snapple. So I'm not just buying things like, oh, I think I'm low on Gatorade. Then you get there, nobody bought Gatorade. Then you just got all this, you guys got all this Gatorade. So, and I say that because, to truly make it passive, you need to have a system. Otherwise it's just, a crazy, insane side hustle. So trying to systemize it so that I can make it hands off. The goal is also to make it completely hands off, and having things like credit card readers is in my opinion, one of the honest ways to do it, because it keeps track of everything about the machine, everything. Oh, more so like about sales and inventory. And that's what you need to hire someone to take it off your hands.
Okay. I think, sorry, my question just popped out of my head, but I know you have a course you do like consulting for folks as far as the vending biz.
So yeah, so I do offer like one-on-one consulting. I'm still early in the game. I'm about a year and a half in, but I think I learned a lot on my own, and I bought some stuff from mentors. Like some of these people that I bought these routes for cheap. Again, when I was being greedy, when others were panicking, these were established guys that've been in the business for 20, 30 years. So I was able to pick their brains a little bit. So that helped me incrementally, get ahead of the game instead of just some guy like just trying to figure it out. Like, oh, okay, I learned this from this person, learned this from this person. So now I'm just kind of bundling some of that knowledge. So I offer, one-on-one consultation. I have a $1 ebook on how to get started in vending. It's not a complete nuts to bolts, but it's enough to get someone started within 30 days. And it takes a lot less. It's just $1, and some people were like, oh, because I was making it for free. And then I was like, oh, okay, it is valuable. So it's like, okay, I'll just put $1 on. I'm not trying to get rich off it, but, just trying to tell people, you don't need to get an LLC, started the business. You don't need to get all these things. You don't even need a credit card reader. It helps. Just get them, get a location, get a machine, and just get started. Just get started.
So Leslie, if you could just have like one tip for somebody starting in the vending business, what would it be?
Find a good location.
Okay.
And if you're looking at a location, you want it to be busy. So think places where people spend a lot of time waiting.
Okay.
A laundromat, hospital, repair shops, hotels. Those are your money makers.
Okay.
Because people just wait in line. Just think of anywhere you're at, DMV, anything where you're just waiting in line, like, yo, this place sucks. People are going to get up. They're going to get hungry, get thirsty. They're going to put money. You think, who uses vending machines? Trust me. It's it's like a $9 billion industry in the United States. It's only growing as automation takes over because credit card readers, some of them just do credit card taps, some of them accept Bitcoin. Like it's only this in people think of it just snacks and drinks, but it's a lot more than that. So you got to open your mind first and think, where do people congregate? And that's going to lead you in the vending journey.
Okay. So I'll put a link in my bio on YouTube or the podcast, wherever you're watching this, so you can kind of, tap into those resources that he has. But where can folks find you at?
So I'm primarily on Instagram. I am on Twitter too, but just look up Dr. Dean. And you get to connect with me, DM me, questions anytime, sign up for a one-on-one, whether it be, vending, real estate, even physical therapy. People think, are you still a physical therapist? Yes, I am. I just don't talk about it. Talk about more entrepreneurship, but I talk about that too. So just find me on Instagram, Dr. Dean.
So another question I was going to ask you, I forgot, lost my mind. Did you use any of the profits from the vending? Did that help with your down payment at all, as far as like any of your business stuff?
No, actually, because at the time, my vending business was just getting started. I was reinvesting a lot to getting more machines.
Okay.
So, I had a few other creative means for a down payment. Like last year, because of the pandemic, we were able to use like our 401k. You were able to withdraw our 401k, use a down payment. I use something called an HSA. I'm not sure if some people are familiar with a health savings account, and just my own savings as a down payment for this house.
Okay.
So I got real creative from financing to the down payment. And then, just 2 or 3K in itself is just unique, but best loan out there for sure.
Okay, cool. So I think that's all we got. I appreciate your time. Like I said, I learned a lot. Like I said, I've been in the business for 6 years and I've never done an FHA 2 or 3K loan. I've heard about it. I've heard people talk about it. So that was good, kind of getting to dive a little bit deeper into the program. So thank you all for tuning in to the House Rich Podcast. No outro. We are done.
Peace.